So some places, some slides you'll see fill in the blanks. You can unmute if you know the answer and give the answer. So here is the verse division of this chapter. First to 10 verses, Arjun's indecision in accepting Lord Krishna as his guru. And the section that we're in right now and finish with the chapter today, 11 to 30th, Jnana or Sankhya Yoga, analysis of the body and soul, matter and spirit. Then Krishna speaks about Sakama Karma, then Nishkama Karma Yoga, and then he speaks about Sthita Prajna Purush, where Arjun asks a question about this person, how can he be, what does he look like, this person who is equipoised. We'll come to that when the end of the chapter comes, a beautiful section. Keep going. 5 reasons you should be on the tip of our fingers now. 5 fingers, right? 5 reasons which Arjun gave for not fighting. So I have the explanation. You just have to give the words. The first, just one word, reason.
Compassion.
Compassion.
Enjoyment.
Enjoyment.
Enjoyment. Sin. Degradation.
Family tradition.
Tradition.
Society will become degraded when all
Society.
men are killed. And the last one?
Confusion.
Confusion, very nice. Compassion, I don't want to hurt them. And Krishna is responding right now to that reason of Arjun. Is refuting that reason which Arjun gave of compassion. I don't want to hurt them. So what is Krishna's response?
He says you shouldn't be worried about whether, because, Krishna says you shouldn't be worried because the soul doesn't get killed anyway. And, the body is going to perish anyway. You cannot hurt them.
So yes, spirit soul is eternal and indestructible. You cannot hurt them. And then Krishna, in 2.11, the section that we started last time, where Krishna starts to answer, Ashochan Anvashochastvam Pragnavadam Bhashase. You're speaking learned words, but your emotions are showing that you are uneducated. So we spoke about how Guru is heavy. He identifies faults. And then what are the other 2 things that Guru does?
He chastises and rectifies.
Chastises and rectifies. Wonderful. So not worthy of lamentation, either living or who's dead. So Agatas Asun and Gata Asun. Srila Prabhupada says we don't have to kill our feelings and emotions. We just need to
channelize them.
Channelize them. Just as one doesn't get unduly worked up when one sees within one's lifetime these changes, childhood, youth to old age. Similarly, the soul blank gets a new
Takes up
body.
another body. Takes up another body.
Don't get bewildered. Then tolerate the temporary dualities in 14th verse. Krishna says, O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of blank and blank.
Winter and summer.
Okay, so first is happiness and distress. And their disappearance in due course are like appearance and disappearance of
winter, summer, the seasons.
Winter, summer.
Winter and summer season. They arise from sense perception of sky and of Bharata, and one must learn to
tolerate them
without being
bewildered.
Disturbed. So Arjun is addressed as Kaunteya and Bharata. So Kaunteya signifies his great blood relations from
mother's side.
Mother's side, and Bharata from father's. Wonderful. Verse 215. O best among men, the person who is not disturbed in happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for
moksha.
Moksha, liberation. Wonderful. 16th verse, Krishna says, those who are seers of the truth have concluded that the non-existent or material body, there is no endurance, or the body keeps changing. It's not constant. And the eternal, which is the soul, there is no change. They have this by studying the nature of both. So, Asat, that which is changing, Arjun's body conception and his bodily relationship with his friends and relatives deprive him of which results? Eternal results. And that which is unchanging, Arjun's identity as a soul and his relationship with Krishna, talked about later in Bhagavad Gita, gives which result? Tricky question. It's the same answer, eternal result. So
Yes.
if you're in bodily conception, we are going to deprive ourselves of eternal results. And same, if you are in that conception and revived your relationship with Krishna, then that will give you eternal result. 17th was that which pervades the entire body, you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy the perishable soul, imperishable soul. So we saw this video in our last class, and which showed how the soul is amazing. Then 18th verse, the material body of indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entities sure to come to an end, therefore fight. And we did this. If the body is bound to be destroyed, even if you avoid fighting, therefore, the body is going to be destroyed even if you avoid fighting. Therefore, you should don't get bewildered thinking that you can save them. And if you know the soul is indestructible, even if you fight, therefore, don't get bewildered thinking you can kill them. So the soul is immeasurable due to its smallness, due to its spiritual nature, because it's not material, hence not materially
Destroyed.
measurable, but it has spiritual dimensions. Point 19, neither he who thinks the living entity the slayer, nor he who thinks it slain is in knowledge, for the self slays, nor is slain. Story in the last class that we did was Bharat Maharaj and how he got the body of a deer, and then in this next slide, he was reborn as Jadbharat. Okay, so today's class, we're going to recite the verse 20th, and we're going to move a little fast because we have 10 or 11 verses that we're going to cover today and finish this section. 20th verse, Najayate mriyate I'm going to request you all to mute because it's going to echo if more people recite together. So you can recite, all of you should recite along. Najayate mriyate va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyah ajo nitya shashvato yam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. For the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, everlasting, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. So let's look at Na Jayate. So here we see so many times Krishna has used the word Na. So Na Jayate, Nayam, Na Bhuya, and Na Hanyate. So when Na is used, so wherever we see, figure of speech like this, na, it just shows that a lot of emphasis is made on a point. So Krishna is speaking about how the soul does not take birth. The soul does not die. Na jayate mriyate va kadachin. Nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuya. It has not come into being. It will not come into being. And it doesn't come into being and will not come into being. And then ajo is unborn. Ajo nitya shashvato yam purano. He is unborn, eternal, everlasting, and primeval, purano. Na hanyate hanyamane sharire. When the body is destroyed, the soul is not destroyed. So ajo is, again, the soul has not come into existence at a particular time. The soul is, Krishna is telling, the soul is transcendental and it's beyond the dimensions of time. It's always eternal. So this is what Krishna has said, like a summary of the 2.20. He has not come into being, does not come into being, will not come into being. He's unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He's not slain when the body is slain, For the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. So Prabhupada tells in the purport that how the soul is kutastha, which means it's constant. It does not change. There is no change. But the body goes through 6 transformations. And what are the transformations for the body? So there is birth in the mother's womb, then it remains for some time, it grows, produces or reproduces some effects, then gradually dwindles, and then vanishes into oblivion at death. So these are the 6 vikaras or changes that the body goes through. So Prabhupada also, you can read the purport later, he also quotes from the Katha Upanishad where similar verse is there. So much similar. Na jayate mriyate va vipaschin. Nayam putaschin na babuva kaschin. So you can read what it means. It's a very similar verse from the Upanishad. So, and Prabhupada says, qualitatively, the small atomic fragmental part of Supreme Spirit is one with the Supreme, and he undergoes no changes like the body. So, talks about the 6 transformations. And then he says, as soon as there is a little light in the sky, early in the morning, we can understand that the sun is in the sky. Similarly, since there is some consciousness in all bodies, whether man or animal, we can understand the presence of the soul. So like we saw the video where the consciousness, how there is consciousness in the body, and that is what pervades the body. That's what brings cognitions to the body. So we saw that video. Similarly, Prabhupada is describing how the consciousness is what keeps the body alive for the soul. Verse number 21, we're going to recite it. Veda vinashinam nityam ya enam ajam avyayam katham sa purusha partha kam ghayanti ghatayati hantikam. If somebody wants to unmute and read the translation.
O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, unborn, eternal, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill?
If a person is in knowledge who knows that the soul is indestructible, so Veda means have knowledge, right? So Veda vinashinam nityam, just as a person, hold on, a person who has knowledge, Veda vinashinam, he knows that the soul is avinashinam. He is indestructible and nityam, always existing. Ya enam ajam avyayam, one who knows that the soul is this, enam is this soul. So till now he hasn't used the word atma still. So interesting. The soul, enam, this soul is unborn and immutable. It's ajam and avyayam. Then he says, how can that person, katham, how can such a purusha, such a person, O Partha, kam ghayanti hantikam, kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? So Krishna is responding here, how can a person who has knowledge of the soul kill or cause to kill? Because we know the soul is indestructible. So you will not kill if you fight. And remember how Arjun had called Krishna Janardana? Janardana means maintainer of all living entities. So I will not cause to kill. So this is what acharyas give in their purports, that how Krishna is saying, yes, I am Janardana, I will not cause to kill because the souls are indestructible. So death in the purport, Prabhupada describes how death is inevitable for the body, that does not give a license to bring avoidable pain to others. Like I was telling a friend of mine long back, when we used to discuss the Bhagavad Gita, this section, the soul cannot be killed even if the body is killed, and she used to eat meat. I'm not sure whether she does anymore, but she used to say, so we're not killing the soul, we're just killing the body of the animal and eating. So Prabhupada used to say, then okay, if you're not killing the soul, just the body, then why don't you kill your own relatives, your own husband or your wife or your children and eat? You're not going to kill the body. So Prabhupada says very emphatically, the Vedic injunction is ma himsayat sarva bhutani, never commit violence to anyone. Nor does understanding that the living entity is not killed encourage animal slaughter. Killing the body of anyone without authority is abominable and is punished by law of the state as well as the law of Lord. Arjun, however, is being engaged in killing for principle of religion and not whimsically. So again, in the purport, he also gives the other dimension to this, how the soul is never killed. That yes, there are times when there is need to kill the body. And what are those times? Like here for Arjuna, it is to re-establish dharma. It is his duty as a Kshatriya to fight and kill. Also in Manu Samhita, Prabhupada says, the law book for mankind, it is supported that a murderer should be condemned to death so that his next life he will not have to suffer for the great sin he has committed. So that's why there is a capital punishment, that whatever sin the person has done in this life, let him suffer here. And then when the soul goes, travels to the next life or wherever, it doesn't have to suffer that reaction for what he's done in this life. So therefore, the king's punishment of hanging a murderer is actually beneficial. Similarly, when Krishna orders fighting, it must be concluded that violence is for supreme justice. Verse number 22, very beautiful verse. And this is one of the verses that we'll try to memorize. Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grinati naroparani tatha sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani samyati navani dehi. We can recite one more time. Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grinati naroparani tatha sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani samyati navani dehi. In our Friday Bhagavad Gita classes, when we're trying to learn these, trying to memorize these verses, I have recorded, audio recording of these verses, these recitations. I can send it in the group if you want me to. So it'll help you memorize verses. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. So Krishna is so much talking about the soul. This question, even when I was little, I was so enamored by, soul and spirit. And that's why I used to love watching horror movies. And, it's a subject that most people while growing up, it is very interesting. So at that time, now I'm really scared. I cannot watch, but at that time, yes. Here in this section, Krishna is giving so many details about the soul, how afterlife also is.
Okay.
Oh, no, this
Hare Krishna, mute yourself. Okay, so Krishna is giving an analogy how when the body dies, the soul moves on to another body. And it is so natural, just like we change clothes, right? When the clothes, Krishna says, when they get old or they get useless, then we change the clothes. It doesn't hurt our body, right? When we're changing our clothes and putting on new ones, does it hurt the body? No. Similarly, when the person dies, when the body dies, the soul moves on to another body. There is no question of so much bewilderment or lamentation because it's just getting a new body. The process of migration is here in this verse, Krishna is talking about transmigration. So first we'll understand what is migration. Migration is travel of the body from one place to another. So emphasis is on the travel. So how the birds sometimes travel from one place to another. They fly a long distance. They migrate because of so many reasons, right? Food and climate and all those reasons. And people also migrate from one place to another place. But there is transmigration, which trans means across. So the soul also moves, right, from one place to another, but because it's across the body, it's called transmigration. Across, meaning it becomes spiritual. Spiritually, there is a change from one body to another. So travel of the soul from one body to another body is called transmigration. Or for example, you say 8,400,000, how many? Yeah. So
84
many
lakhs.
kinds of body. 84, yeah. So transmigration of the soul through those many bodies or species of life. So depending on the purpose and our inclination, we choose a dress, right? If it is so cold, the purpose of choosing a kind of dress is to stay warm. And then it also, what dress we choose also depends on our desires, right? So two things are here. How we choose a dress depending on the purpose and depending on our inclination or our desires. We choose a dress. Similarly, depending on our karma and our inclinations or desires, we are given a new body. So that's how the soul is given a new body. As we remain the same, but the dress changes, keeps changing, similarly, the soul remains the same, but bodies keep changing. So the point of focus that Krishna is telling over here is the relationship between the body and soul should not be given too much emphasis. Just like when we change our clothes, there's not too much emphasis on the clothes. It is the person, right? And here we see the soul should be, the emphasis should be on the soul and not the body too much. So the relationship between body and soul should not be given too much emphasis, but it's that because it's not an eternal relationship, it keeps changing. There was a person who was a wonderful, he used to make sculptures. So somehow he got to know his time of death, that it is coming tonight. So what he did, like that particular day, that particular night, which was coming in a few days, I am going to leave my body. So, and there's somebody who's going to come get my soul. So what he did was he made sculptures exactly, he or she, exactly looking like himself. So 3 sculptures like that, exactly looking like, and then he himself put that clay or whatever on himself. So because he was such an expert and he stood like that in the museum through the day, nobody could make out that there is one person standing and the others are made with clay. Nobody could find out. And he was thinking, like this, he'll cheat the death also. When death comes, it will not know which person to take, right? Which soul to do. Where is the soul? Everybody is looking exactly the same out of these 4. So when the Yamadutas came, they're also smart. So they tricked him. How? They're like, wow, these are exactly the same. And the sculpture was thinking, wow, even these, Yamdutas have this so much appreciation for my art. And he's thinking, see, I have cheated them. Now they cannot take me. But then one of the Yamdutas said, yeah, they're all the same, but I don't see too much similarity in all of them. The moment he said this, one of the sculptures, the emotions changed on the face, and they got to know, okay, this is the person, which there is a soul inside, a living person, and they took the soul. So there's emotions in a living entity which come because of consciousness, because of the soul. So let's keep moving. 23rd verse. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakaha, na chainam klediyam kapo, na shoshyati marutaha. Somebody can read the translation, please.
The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind.
So the soul can never be cut into pieces by weapons. So chindanti shastrani. Shastra is weapon. So it cannot be cut by weapons. Nainam dahati pavakaha. So it cannot be burned by fire. It cannot be moistened by water. Na chainam vedyan tapo. Enna shoshati maruta. It cannot be withered by the wind. So many characteristics of the soul, but the emphasis is that the things that destroy the body, all of these things will destroy the body, right? But the emphasis is that all the things that can destroy the body cannot harm the soul. So Arjuna had all these weapons, right? All these weapons which were fire weapons, weapons which could emanate electricity like lightning. Then there's weapons with which can bring out tornadoes or even water, so much water it could flood and kill people. So Krishna is trying to tell him that all these weapons that you have, don't think that you'll be able to kill them, kill the soul with these weapons. The souls are eternal. They're not hurt by all these weapons. So we'll keep going. So purport also, Prabhupada mentions about these weapons and then how the soul will not be hurt or cannot be harmed by any of these. So how come these weapons cannot destroy the soul? Krishna talks about in the next. Achedyoyam adhayoyam akledyo shoshe aivacha nitya sarvagata sanur achalayam sanatana. Somebody can read the translation.
The individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble and can be neither born nor die. He is everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same.
It's very interesting how Krishna is giving all these characteristics. It's unbreakable, insoluble, neither burnt nor dried, everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, eternally the same. So, for example, if there is a medicine in a capsule, you will say that the water will not dissolve it. Why? So this is an assertion that the water cannot dissolve the medicine. Why? Because it's insoluble. So that is the characteristic of the medicine, which explains the assertion, right? This is simple to understand. If you put your capsule in the water, the medicine in the water will not be able to dissolve it. Why? Because the medicine is insoluble. So similarly, Krishna is giving 4 assertions which are made in the 23rd verse. That the soul cannot be cut by weapons, it cannot be burnt by fire, it cannot be moistened by water, it cannot be withered by wind. So these are all assertions. And the characteristic Krishna is giving of the soul, it proves that how they are not burnt, how the soul is not burnt, how it is not dissolved in water. So like that, it is because it's unbreakable. It cannot be cut into pieces because it is unable to be burnt. That's why the fire cannot burn it. It is insoluble. That's why it cannot be moistened by water. It is ashosha. It cannot be dried. That's why it cannot be withered by the wind. So beautifully, all 4 assertions, Krishna is giving 4 characteristics for the soul. So we're good so far. Any questions till now? Keep going. So Krishna also says the soul is sarvagataha. It is present everywhere, not all pervading, which means that present everywhere doesn't mean that the soul, one soul is everywhere. It cannot be all pervading. Krishna is all pervading, the supreme soul. But why? Because Krishna has just now given example that when the body dies, the soul leaves the body and goes to another body. So it pervades that one particular body. It cannot pervade everywhere, go everywhere. But so when Krishna says Sarvagata, present everywhere, what does he mean? Our acharyas, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Baladev Vidyabhushan, they tell us how it is capable of going everywhere and capable of living everywhere. This is the reason why Krishna says it's Sarvagata, it is present everywhere. So the soul it is capable of living everywhere. Also, the scientists these days, they are discovering these living entities, even inside fire, underneath the water, where there is the temperature is so it is so cold. There's no way any living entity can survive, but they have found these living entities which can survive that kind of cold. So, and there are these. It's really interesting. I found out about these living entities called extremophiles, and let's watch what they are.
Intense heat, freezing cold, high acidity, and radioactivity. These harsh environments don't seem hospitable for life, but some organisms not only survive, but thrive under such extreme conditions. The name extremophile means extreme lover. These organisms live in exceptionally harsh environments, such as hot hydrothermal vents or buried in rocks far beneath the Earth's surface. Extremophiles occur in all three domains of life: bacteria, archaea, and eukaryote. They range from the extreme heat-loving thermophiles, which feed off of inorganic chemicals and have special enzymes to survive high temperatures, to extreme cold-loving psychrophiles, which have evolved antifreeze proteins that help ensure their survival in some of the coldest waters on the planet. But the most extreme living things on Earth are tardigrades. Also known as water bears, these water-dwelling microanimals are polyextremophiles. This means they are capable of surviving multiple harsh conditions. They are nearly indestructible and have even survived the extreme conditions of outer space. Tardigrades have a unique adaptation that allows them to curl up into a dry, seemingly lifeless ball and slow down their metabolic rate. In this state, they can survive cold, dry environments like space for decades. Studying the adaptations of extremophiles may hold the key to solving many of Earth's problems. This includes the development of genetically based medications, producing new types of biofuels, and protecting people against radiation exposure. Extremophiles have opened our minds to the many possibilities of life and the environments that can support it. Understanding the limits of life in these extreme conditions on Earth may provide scientists with clues of how life could possibly exist elsewhere in the universe.
It's very interesting. So, see, Prabhupada also in the purport, if you read, he says that how life in other planets is totally possible. Scientists may say right now there is no life on Moon or here and there, wherever, whichever planet they are able to go to. But Prabhupada says, a beautiful example he gives, that if you're walking for a morning walk, if you go, and you see a little crack, and this was recent, 2 days back, I also saw a little crack in the road. There were so many ants inside the crack. So one little crack on Earth, and there's so much life within that crack. Prabhupada says, you see all these planets, Krishna is the perfect creator. He will not make all these planets and waste so much space. There is a reason why all these planets and universes are made, because there are living entities everywhere. So scientists are now finding so much more and more in detail how there are so many living entities which can survive all these extreme conditions. And he also says Thanur, which is unchangeable, and Achala, which is immovable. The soul cannot move from one place to another. It is not possible, right? Because right now Krishna said that it moves from one body to another. So it is movable. What Krishna means by immovable, without its own will, it cannot move from one place to another. Another wonderful information that maybe most of you might already know, that when a body dies, right, when the person dies, the soul to be taken from this body, there are Yamdutas who come, right, to take the soul. For the ones who are not devotees, let's put it that way. So when the Yamaduta comes, what does he hold in his hand? How does he take the soul? You can see it in this picture. You know, anybody knows the name of the
Yamapasha.
Yamapasha. Yes, so it's kind of a
Yamapasha.
rope, right? With which it drags out. Does it drag out the soul? What does the Yamapasha do?
It pulls the soul out of the body.
Right. Anybody has any other answer?
What was the question?
It drags the soul.
What do the Yamadutas do with the Yamapash?
They tie the soul and drag it to.
Is it the sins?
They
or
tie the body,
sins or
tie the
something?
body and take out the soul, because
The subtle
body is
body. I think it
to the
removes the
soul.
subtle body.
Yes, wonderful. Who said subtle body?
Me.
The subtle body, because the Yamapash is also material. It is of this material universe. It is within this material universe, right? So the Yamapash cannot touch the soul. It can only take out the subtle body. So because the soul is attached to the subtle body, the soul also drags along with the subtle body. It's a wonderful, I mean, I also didn't know this. It's amazing. When I was studying about how it's immovable, I got to know this. Prabhupada says, after liberation from material contamination, the atomic soul may prefer to remain as spiritual spark in the effulgent rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the intelligent souls enter into the spiritual planets to associate with the Personality of Godhead. It's talking about the devotee. 25th verse. Let's recite the verse first. Avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaroyam uchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanushochitum arhasi. It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, immutable, and unchangeable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. So we cannot perceive the soul with our material senses. And because it's inconceivable, Krishna says, and it doesn't go through, again, transformations. It's immutable and unchangeable. The soul doesn't go through the 6 transformations that we spoke about. And it cannot be also na shochitum arhasi. Now this, what Krishna says in D, 25D, he's going to repeat again and again. It'll come in 26, 27, and also 30th. Nanu shochitum arhasi means, knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. So again and again, emphatically, Krishna will bring out this point in the coming verses, that knowing this, having this knowledge about the soul, how it is indestructible and how the body is destructible, you should not lament, you should not grieve. So here Krishna speaks about these 3 characteristics, how it's invisible, inconceivable, immutable. We spirit soul, we have been engaged within this body, so our natural aspiration is to get freedom from its engagement as much as the bird is struggling to get freedom from the cage, Prabhupada says. The link to the next verse. Now Krishna presents another viewpoint according to material vision that rejects the existence of soul. So this is the atheistic view, and Krishna is giving that view also, that which shows that how in those days also there were people who were atheistic. Apachainam nityajatam nityam va manyase mritam tathapi tvam mahabaho nainam shochitum arhasi. See again Krishna saying, Nainam shochitum arhasi. So you should not lament. If, however, the soul is already born, Krishna says, if, however, you think that the soul or symptoms of life will always be born and die forever, you should have no reason to lament, because something which has taken birth is going to die. So atheistic philosophy is life comes from chemical combinations at birth, and life ends when chemical processes keeping one alive cease to function. So this is their theory. But there is no consciousness present in just biochemical arrangements. This is what they cannot explain. How the consciousness comes and goes, they cannot explain. So there is example given that how within the body, if you just make something which is of biochemically produced, there cannot be any consciousness, right? Similar, like a crude example is when we're listening to music, it seems like the person is right there, like a soundtrack, right? But the person himself is not there, is not present. There is a recording. So similarly, in a living entity, because there is consciousness, there is it is pervaded with consciousness because of the soul, because of the Atma. We'll keep going, 27th verse, and then 3 more verses, and we'll finish this section. Recite the verse first. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityur dhruvam janma mritasya cha tasmad api harete na tvam shochitum arhasi. Again, Krishna has said the same thing. Na tvam shochitum arhasi. Knowing this, you should not lament. So, Jatasya, one who has taken birth. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityur. One who has taken birth is sure to die. Mrityu is sure to come. And after death, one is sure to take birth again. Dhruvam janma mritasya cha. Again, after being dead. Mrityu, janma is for sure. Tasmad apariharyarthe. So therefore, in the discharge of your duty, you should not lament. So basically, he's saying that you're thinking that you're killing your elders, they are going to die anyway. The body is going to die anyway. And if you kill them right now, doing your duty, they are going to get a new body anyway. Either they're going to get liberated or they're going to get a new body. And they're already, at that stage of life where they're getting so old, they are going to die for sure, sooner or later. So here Krishna is talking about reincarnation, how the soul gets the next body. The journey of the soul over many, many lives is what reincarnation is. So when a person dies, birth is sure. And when the person takes birth, death is sure. Yes, hi Mataji.
Mataji, you had shown earlier a video on where there were people who had near-death experiences. And I also have researched this quite a bit. And one of the things that I see that they talk about is that they have kind of a review of their life so far, and they do homework on how the person felt when they said a certain thing that might have hurt them, or like how their actions had effects on others. And they went through a huge learning process. And I'm wondering if that is at all part of our process, because when we die, because I noticed that in all of our, like in the Bhagavad Gita and in the pictures, that it seems like we just literally move from one body to the next without a review time. Can you speak? And if it's not appropriate to speak on that topic now, I understand if you have a flow and you don't want to incorporate that. But
No. I totally understand your question. You're asking if in between there is a time when the soul is given that time to review what he's done in his life, and if he's taken to hellish planets or Swargaloka, how he's coming there because of what he's done in his life. So all that time, it is there. There is a scripture called Garud Puran where all this is mentioned. How the soul, is taken, that journey, how the soul is taken to the next, wherever it's supposed to go. And then what the descendants can do. Right now it's Pitru Paksh going on. So many people perform this puja and then give offer prasad to their ancestors. So all that is mentioned in Garud Puran. Not so much, that journey is not so much mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. So we're not going to tangent over there, but it is true. But today's activity is also really, I'll tell you what we're going to do in the end of the class. We're going to make the same rooms, breakout rooms, and we're going to, anybody who has interesting story about what they've heard or even experienced within their family or friends, anything about reincarnation or experience with a soul or a spirit or something, whatever you've experienced, which seems like it's like paranormal or connected with spirit or soul. We're going to discuss that in our class. But yes, I understand your question, and we can, if you need more information, there is Garud Puran where all this information is.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji. One has to take birth according to one's activities of life, and after finishing one term of activities, one has to die to take birth for the next. In this way, the cycle of birth and death is revolving one after the other without liberation. 28th verse. Avyaktadini bhutani vyakta madhyani bharata avyakta nidhananeva tatra ka paridevana. Krishna says, all created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when annihilated. So what need is there for lamentation? The soul, before taking birth, nobody can see it, so it is unmanifest. But when it comes in a body, it is manifest. We can see it. But when the person dies, the soul is again unmanifest. So just like example is given, if there is a seed which needs to be harvested before harvest, right? It is there in the previous crop. So you cannot even see those seeds, but they're unmanifest in the beginning state. But they're manifest when the seed is taken out and planted, and then the seedling comes out, and then it grows into a crop. Then when it's harvested after that, the whatever is left out, the greens that are left out, they are burnt or they are fed to animals. So it's unmanifest again. This is another example what our seniors have given. So Krishna is stressing on the temporariness of everything material as contrasted with the eternality of the soul. Do not give up your duty out of fear of death of your loved ones. That's what Krishna is stressing. The matter is just changing states. It should not be cause of heartbreaking lamentation. Prabhupada says in the purport, if we accept the Vedic conclusion as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Antavanta ime deha, that these material bodies are perishable in due course of time, nitya syuktaha sharirinaha, but that soul is eternal, then we must remember always that the body is like a dress. Therefore, why lament the changing of a dress? Verses Ashcharyavat pashyati kashchidenam Ashcharyavat vadati tathaiva chanyaha Ashcharyavat chainam anya shrunoti Shrutvapiyenam vedana chaiva kaschit. Some look at the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. We had a video also earlier, it was called The Amazing Soul. And how is it amazing? Original position of the soul is Satchidananda, eternal, full of knowledge and full of happiness. The soul is truly amazing, and we'll give 3 reasons under intellectual understanding. There might be many, many more reasons also, but under intellectual understanding, how we can understand about the soul, we all long for eternal life, and we try to eternalize our present life because the soul is eternal, and within the body, we also want to live eternally, but it is impossible. But when we get the knowledge that we are already eternal, because the soul is eternal, I just need to realize my eternal nature. It is truly amazing. We all long for a happy life, and we try to acquire things, fame, knowledge, etc., to become happy in this life. But then we realize that the soul by nature is always happy. I just need to reconnect with the Supreme Soul, and automatically joyfulness will manifest. It is truly amazing. All the souls have the same size and nature, but the potencies, inclinations, emotions are so different in different material bodies. And that's how it's truly amazing. And the second part, this should be B. Spiritual perception, when one's spiritual vision is awakened, that time one is able to perceive the spiritual reality. It is said that one person can perceive through, even in this material body, can perceive the soul face to face like we are seeing each other. We can perceive the soul and the super soul also, if we are at that level of spiritual realization. So these are 4 stages. Jagrat is when we are awake. Swapna is when we're sleeping, when we have dreams. Shushupti is when we're in deep sleep, which is dreamless. And then there is Turiya, when a person goes into Samadhi and can have spiritual perception. And that is truly amazing when the soul can be perceived. And we can also understand, our acharyas tell us how the soul is amazing when we look at it. So some look at the soul as amazing, even if you change the epithet, right? Here we spoke about how the soul is amazing, but we can talk about the person who is seeing the soul or understanding about the soul, is that person is amazing, right? Because not many people are interested in spiritual life. They just want to go about, enjoying their senses with the sense objects in this world. They're not interested at all in these deeper subject matters. So the people who do try to understand about the soul, they are amazing. So looking is amazing, people are amazing, and the soul is amazing. So 3 things, right? Soul is amazing, people amazing, we've just spoken about, and the soul is amazing, we all know that. So these 3 aspects you can take when understanding this verse. Then hearing about the soul. So some hearing is amazing because, again, people are not interested to hear about these deeper matters. Some people just sleep. When you start talking about anything spiritual, anything concerned with God, suddenly there is, Nidra Devi, which comes. So hearing is amazing. People who hear, they are amazing, and the soul is amazing. And again, some describe the soul as amazing. The describing is amazing. The people who describe, they are amazing. Because not just that they've understood, they're also explaining and describing, and the soul is amazing. So, yeah. But it also requires a great deal of penance and sacrifice, either in this life or in previous ones, before one is able to accept Krishna as Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna can, however, be known as such by causeless mercy of pure devotees and no other way. So it's talking about how when a devotee's mercy is there, then this, with the mercy, we are able to perceive not just our soul, but also the Supreme Soul, Supreme Personality of God. And the last verse for today, we'll quickly finish with that. Let's recite it. Dehi nityam adhayo yam dehe sarvasya bharata tasmat sarvani bhutani na tvam shochitum arhasi. O descendant of Bharata, he who dwells in the body can never be slain. Therefore, you need not grieve for any living being. So beautifully, Krishna has summarized the whole section, and he's given just 2 points here, that being that dwells within the body, which is the soul, cannot be slain. And therefore, you need not lament for the body or for the living being. So Krishna summarizes the section on Jnana and Sankhya with this verse, emphasizing that it is not worthy of you to lament for anyone, because the body is temporary, and so we can dedicate our consciousness to what is eternal and indestructible, which is the soul. And here in this verse, Krishna says it's Nityam and it is Avadhya, which is eternal and cannot be killed. Yes, Deepaji.
Mataji, I observed that the word Atma has not been used even at this point. So has it ever been used in the Bhagavad Gita, and is there a reason why it's not used?
I also don't know whether it's going to come or not, but he does talk about how Hrideshe, the soul, is residing within the body, and that's where the Supreme Soul also resides. So I'm going to research more and see whether it's coming. But the word Atma he has used so many times. Atma Ratir, Atma Tushti, Atma word has come. But connected with the soul literally, I'm going to research on that. If anybody knows, you can tell. If it is literally connected with the soul when the Atma is used.
Yes,
Must have
Mataji.
it. Yes.
This Atma has got many meanings. You
Yes.
can Bandhar Atma, Atma, because Atma is, this word refers to body also, to soul also, to super cell also, to subtle
Yes.
body also. Yes, because that will be described slowly in this
In the book.
later stage.
Yeah.
Yes. Bandhar
Thank
Atmana eva Atmanasya, like that. I don't know if I
So yeah, Atma word is coming many times, but literally connected with the soul, I'll find out which verse and I will let you know. But we just did in the 3rd chapter, I'll tell you which verse. 3.19, I think it is. 3 times the word Atma is used. Atma Ratir, Atma Tushti, Atma, and then one more word is used. So to denote that a person finds happiness within, like that. So Atma has come for sure. Though the soul is immortal, violence is not encouraged, but at the time of war, it is not discouraged when there is actual need for it. The need must be justified in terms of the sanction of the Lord and not capriciously. This is what Prabhupada says in the end. So this is the summary of this section from 11 to 30th verses. You can look at it later. And these are all the characteristics of the soul and which verse they come in. That's also given here. You can look at this also later. And with that, oh, this was a story we wanted to do. Most of us must be knowing the story, but I'll quickly go through it and then we'll do our activity also. So it's King Chitraketu and his son, how he had many, many wives. There's 10 million queens and the king was capable of giving birth to a child, but none of the queens were capable of giving a child to him. And he was very sad. So one day Angira Muni came to meet the king. And and after the welcoming ceremony, the guru and the king sat down. After welcoming, so they sat down and he's talking about the well-being of the king. He was impressed with his humility, how the king also sat next to him on the floor. The guru asked the king if his queens, countrymen, ministers, employees, and sons were all in his control. And he's sad. He says, everything but a son. I don't have a son, which is the reason for his unhappiness. And then the guru or the muni, grants him a son. He performs these rituals and puja to fulfill the king's wishes. And the muni decides to grant the son to the eldest queen, and her name is Kritaduti, as she was skillful and accomplished. So they did have a son, and the muni said, you have to name the son Harsha Shoka, because the son will give you a lot of happiness, but also he will be the cause of distress for you. And the king is thinking, all the children, they are a cause of distress here and there. With them comes so many responsibilities. And then they have their own choices in life. But I have a son, I'm so happy. The king was so happy that there was no limit to his happiness. He gives so much charity. And now he's so attached to his wife who bore him the son. So he gives so much time and attention to that wife, that mother, that all the other wives, they get so unhappy and they are so envious of this one co-wife, and they decide to poison the child. And then the child dies, which is a great lamentation for the king and the queen also. And they're so much lamentful. He's so sad and he's crying. He doesn't know anything. He's not eating. He's not taking care of the, welfare of the kingdom. He forgets everything and he just goes into grief, in so much grief that Angira Muni and Narad Muni, they decide to visit the king. And they come and they say that this king, his name is Chitraketu, had concentrated fully on the sacred message with the help of Devshri Narad, what was the message? The message was about the soul, that the soul will, so don't lament so much. The son that you're calling, your son has a soul and it has moved on. It's just the body which has died, but they are so sorrowful. Their grief is just limitless and they're crying and crying. So they call, they just say, can you just give us this boon and make this son come alive? That is the only thing we want. So they bring the soul back into the body. And when the soul comes back to the body comes alive and the son starts to speak. The king and the queen, they're so happy. They go and hug the child and they're, oh, you've come back. And the son, when he gets up, starts to speak. He said, you're calling me your son. So you're my father in this life, but I've had so many previous lives. I don't recognize you. I have had so many other bodies. As a soul, I've had so many other bodies, and there were so many mothers and fathers I had. Which mother and father are you? So hearing this from their son, they come out of their grief. And then the soul leaves the premises and they do the rituals and traditions for the dead body of the son. And now they have the equilibrium that they had lost. It is revived back. And it's further goes on the story about Chitraketu. A beautiful story in the Bhagavatam. We won't go there right now. We'll do it another time. But how the soul does not die is what we learned from the story, and how it moves on to other destination. That's where we'll end, and we'll stop share here and stop recording. Any questions so far?